It looks like somebody, it looks like I may be streaming. All right, well, if this seems like I'm experimenting, it is. So forgive me, it's a few minutes before. I don't know if I'm actually streaming or not. Looks like I may be. All right, I hope this is working. So I have an iPhone hooked up here, but all right, I have some instructions here. Let me go through. Okay, well, this works if your Mac is, if your iPhone is 16, well, mine's an 8. The iOS, oh, what's my iOS? I know it's an iPhone 8. That's not what I want. No. iPhone 8. Version 16. Oh, okay, iOS is 16. Okay. Both are signed into the same Apple ID. Wi-Fi is on. Mount and unlock your phone. Okay, in OBS, switch the camera source. OBS, go to sources. Okay. Find your current camera, usually called something like FaceTime HD. Mine says video capture device. All right, I guess I would add a source. Built in either FaceTime HD camera. Sorry, folks, if I am going live. I'm at 11 o'clock. I'm going to, in whatever mode I'm in, I'm going to simply just go on with the show. Okay. FaceTime HD camera. Video capture device. That's what I have here. Oh, okay, FaceTime HD camera built in. How do Jeffrey's iPhone. Wonderful. Okay, so this should be working. Okay, preset high. Okay. Oh. Yeah, this is, I don't want that. Okay, I guess I do this. Okay, and I do this. And probably want video. Aha! I think we're cooking here. Okay. I want to reduce this. How do I? Okay. This doesn't look right. Unless maybe I enlarge this. Okay. Wish I could tell how this is coming out, but I'm just going to trust that my camera, well, I know I shaved. I didn't shave this morning, but I should wear makeup or something, foundation or something. I don't look my best. Wow, this is different from using an iMac. Okay, all right. Set up my dimensions. I guess that's That's how it would appear. Okay, all right. So forgive me my very speckled face right now, but it's good. Okay, I think we're cooking. All right. And the device drop down. Yep. Okay. Select it. I think we're cooking. Well, we will find out. Okay. All right. So, and I have this up. Okay. I see. Okay. Screen share. Nice. I'm going to move this back up. Um, all right. All right. It's not necessarily 11 o'clock yet. So I'm going to do a quick thing here. Copy. Okay. Open up a new. Okay. It's a demonstration of how quick I can be. Anybody, any prospective employers out there. All right. Paste. All right, and I'll export this as a PDF. Okay, I'll call it for live stream. Okay, export. Okay, good, 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 good. That way I can get rid of this. How did I know to do that so well? All right, so I don't hopefully dox myself any further. All right. All right, so this should work. If I screen share. Nice. Okay, wonderful. Okay, we're cooking, sort of. The screen, it won't show up entirely on screen. There we go. This doesn't matter to you so much, I guess, but it matters a lot to me. Okay. All right. I do have a video, an actual countdown. I haven't set that up. This is all work in progress as I progress, obviously as I progress further. But this is basically, I'll get better. Okay. I hope this is recording. Okay. Great. Thank you for joining in if you are. I don't see any views yet, but maybe some will come in as time progresses. A few things first. I want to talk about, here I'll look at the iPhone. Well, first of all, I'll mention the obvious things. I have my iPhone 8 set up with a ring light, and I'll try not to, well, there are fewer distractions around me, so I'm looking at myself in my preview, but at least it's working. So I do have my iPhone set up. I've got my camera light behind me. I've got this turned off, and I got rid of the green backdrop. I have this microphone. Yay! And I'm awaiting today. There should be a shipment for the of the cord, that the XRL cord that goes behind here and hooks into an audio system that probably connects into my computer. So and I can see that this is recording my audio. So hopefully everything's working okay, and you don't hear me mumbling, very silent, can't make out what I'm saying. Hopefully it's all working out. I have ditched this arm for the time being because I'm missing a certain part that would connect this to this. So right now I have it to my side. This shouldn't be working right now anyway, so I'll just lay this over here. On to the more fun stuff I can be able to share now. This is what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about a few things. Well, first I should mention my bumper. Here, let me get relaxed here. My bumper ad. So it's going to be it's going to be about 30 seconds. I captured some clips I designed with help from ChatGPT. I designed a bumper, like those television network bumpers like Fox or NBC or something. Those of you about my age will remember Let's All Be There, some kind of promotion. It shows the TV shows that are on. Well, I've always thought of this channel as something bigger, not just a YouTube channel, but a television network. I'm very creative. I aspire to be a filmmaker and primarily a TV. I mean, up until my college years, I had aspired to be a television executive producer, meaning doing what Rod Serling did, or creating these TV shows, being famous for creating a slew of TV shows. And this is my avenue. This is something creative, at least something creative I can do right now, right here. So I have several podcasts. Each podcast is a different show, so to speak. And so the channel itself is my television studio network. And so I figured I need to promote the different podcasts. Some people have been actually confused because I think primarily they had seen me dressed up as Samantha and wondering what that was all about. So that's only one podcast of 4 different podcasts. And it was also a way that the algorithm would not pigeonhole me into just talking about what I do in my live streams or Samantha. Even though I want as many viewers as possible, I want to advertise all the different podcasts I do. So I figured a 30-second ad. If I said 30-minute before, I'm sorry, 30-second ad, and it's super duper. I got exciting music. I planned to do it yesterday, but something detracted me. It was good. It was helpful. It was more personal. Somebody had called and we talked. I want to be very careful about how I phrase it, what I say, but somebody had called and I talked about something from my past, and this morning it helped me in certain ways emotionally. And so I have on my iPhone, on my cloud, on my Google Drive actually, I have a list of songs, and I wanted to talk about Samantha, what I'm doing with Samantha. I've talked about this before, but there's a list of about 22 songs that I want to produce, I want to perform, I want to write. Here, I still have this book handy next to me, and I want to create, because I grew up in the 1980s, I love the 1980s, I want to create music reminiscent of the 1980s. And I liked female impersonation and dressing up, and I mentioned my idol, so to speak, Gray Phillips. And I want to do what Gray Phillips has done except for 1980s music. So it's something artistic and illusionary. I want to see if I can pull it off. And also, I think the way I think about things, the way I compose music, I think is towards what a female singer might, how a female singer might sing. So that's it for Samantha I wanted to cover. Let's get on to, I think that's all that I wanted to say. So let's get on to the fun stuff. I've got two primary things I wanted to talk about. Here, let's see how this, well, all right, I can use it from here. This is just a sharing. There we go. There we go. See, it just takes some time. Okay. Gee, this doesn't, this only goes up to here. It doesn't go all the way down, but I have notes on what I want to talk about. So this, you can see for live stream. I wanted to talk first about, let's see, the UFOs in Hollywood, like how Hollywood has depicted flying saucers and UFOs. I went back and, gee, I wish I could show the entire thing here. Scale to window. Will that work? Nope, that doesn't work. Okay. Will this? Oh well. All right. All right. I'll talk about it while I'm doing this. How about that? Oh, here we go. All right. So, aha. All right. So you can see the beginning of this. The earliest, according to a search I did, the earliest movie with a flying saucer had been The Flying Saucer, appropriately enough. And I caught, there was one other movie in this around 1949 with a similar title to The Flying Saucer, but I figured I will start with this. I'm not really familiar with that earlier one. I haven't seen the movie The Flying Saucer. I'd like to, but I certainly have seen the next one, 1951. Now, for context, the modern flying saucer era began with Kenneth Arnold's sighting in 1947. So this is only a few years later. You may have seen The Day the Earth Stood Still. It's a great movie. 1951 shows a classic flying saucer landing on the White House lawn, and in that movie, I want to talk about how our attitudes or the depictions of aliens changed over time or shifted. 1951, it was very much it has a lot of elements of what would come to be in contactee stories. For those of you who don't know, contactee stories, contactees flourished in the 1950s and 60s. They would, contactee would write a book claiming to have met with somebody, an alien, usually from our solar system, like somebody from Venus or Mars or Jupiter or something like that. And there are a lot of religious elements, religious in the sense of New Age tech religious elements, as if you took elements that you would need for a religion and put them in modern times, updated them to our modern tech, and in the vein of the milieu of flying saucers. So instead of seeing a guardian angel, the writer, the contactee, would claim to have met with say a Venusian, and would describe how a craft landed. A lot of times he would say, and there were female contactees, but I'll just say male because just because there were, I think, more males than females, but would sometimes hear a telepathic communication, would be in contact with somebody from Venus, for example, and the alien would talk about how destructive Earth is, and that we must overcome our aggressive natures, so to speak. We must mature as a species. Da 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 da. With their help, we can be able to mature, to a peaceful society. And it was very evangelical. And so there'd be repeated contacts. And it was actually funny. No, I don't want to diverge from the topic of UFOs in Hollywood, but um, the contactees would, as the books continued and as they tended to compete with each other, sort of in a friendly way, I guess, um, they were aware of each other. They would each claim to have an earlier contact than the one before. It was like almost like a pissing contest, um, like somebody claimed to have met with a Venusian in 1948, and then somebody else comes out and says, I claim to in 1946 to have met with an alien, and then 1945, and so it's weird. But they had conventions. They had I think it was called Big Rock Convention. I know it sounds like a rock music festival, but it's in some sense I guess it was. It was a convention they had. They pushed their books and paraphernalia and so forth. So that was in the 50s and 60s. So it's interesting that the day the Earth stood still had some elements of that and had some other religious elements too. Like there was a hint of the alien being not reincarnated, resurrected. And from what I've read, I think that the studio, somebody was very skittish. One agency involved was very skittish about the religious implications of depicting resurrection in this. Because you've got to remember, this is 1951, and times were different then. So, but at the end of the story, and by the way, this is based on, I think, a short story or a short novel. I can't remember the name of the novel. But anyway, at the end, Klaatu, the alien, gives his message. You Earth must, as you now possess technology to go into outer space, you must clean up your act, or we'll clean you up for you. Which is kind of dire. And that's how it ends. Now the next movie, The Thing from Another World, came out in the same year, but it was very different. So in the same year, you had a peaceful urgency, an urgency by peaceful aliens. The next movie, same year, was, if you've seen John Carpenter's The Thing, that was a remake, a clever remake of The Thing from Another World. I think I've seen the original once. And from what I remember, James Arness, those of you who know who James Arness is, played the Thing in the alien costume. But of course, the modern day, I think it was 1982 or 83, had much more gruesome effects. But that story, of course, is a lot more frightful. Same thing with War of the Worlds, 1953, and Invaders from Mars. Now, I didn't see a lot of peaceful aliens in here. It seemed to be typically us versus them, some kind of invasion, like you would have later seen in Independence Day, 1996. So you've got War of the Worlds, you've got Invaders from Mars, Earth versus the Flying Saucers, which is superb. It has Ray Harryhausen with stop motion effects for the flying saucers. It was definitely a flying saucer invasion. In fact, I would kind of call it the 1950s. I would call Independence Day the 1990s version of Earth versus the Flying Saucers. And I think actually Earth versus the Flying Saucers is superior in many ways. And that had as an advisor somebody from, was it the Air Force? Major Donald Kehoe. I think it was based on a book that he had written. I think the book was called Flying Saucers Are Here. But he was a strong proponent that the Air Force, the military is covering up vital information that the public needs to know about flying saucers, which is in itself something interesting for ufology, UFO history. Then came that same year, 1956, came what somebody called the first pseudo documentary about UFOs. It is very much, I would call it a dramatization. It was narrated by somebody. It's based on the experiences of Al Chop, who worked in, I believe it may have been I think he was the media, the publicity, the media liaison within the military about UFOs and flying saucers. But it's a dramatization narrated by somebody portraying Al Chop. It's interesting. When I was watching it, I was watching with a group of people, and he said his son Chip, and it took me a split second, Chip Chop. I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know if that was intentional when he named his child, but Chip Chop. Okay. Then I didn't even bother going through the rest of the 1950s and 60s movies because it's the same fare. It's us versus them, aliens coming in and invading. Now we come across a movie that was shown on TV, Disappearance of Flight 412. I don't know anything about it, but it's interesting. It's remarkable. 1974 that they had something on TV about flying saucers, and you'll see this later. Well, you'll see this soon. That they, of course, TV being a very popular broadcast medium, they would produce stuff for television as well. There was Escape to Witch Mountain the following year, 1975. That was by Disney. It's not so much aliens or UFOs, but it was based on a book, and I used to have the book. I don't know if I still do. But it's very much Disney fare. It's two kids who turn out about halfway through they kind of piece together that they're aliens. And at the very end, you see another alien who's come to get them, and it's very peaceful. They have magical powers. It's kind of like witchcraft and aliens put together. It's much more witchcraft related, kind of witchy superpowers. It's kind of like superpowers related. At the very end, of course, they have a flying saucer takeoff at the very end. But that's the only part that you see a flying saucer craft in that movie. However, that was 1975. However, back on television, you would get, I think I would consider the first actual drama based on a true story of a UFO encounter, and that was the Betty and Barney Hill case, appropriately enough. That was really the first alien abduction case that became public. There was an article written in Life magazine that was very famous for mainstreaming the idea of alien abductions, and it starred the TV movie. I believe aired on Monday night maybe. If I recall, it was on NBC. But anyway, starred James Earl Jones. Now, the Betty and Barney Hill case was, they were an interracial couple, and there were some elements of that. If you want to read further, if you want to read more than learn more than just what's on YouTube, there's a very famous book that I have over there, which obviously won't help you now, called, oh my gosh, it's all about the UFO incident. I'm blanking on the title right now. It'll come to me. It'll come. The Interrupted Journey. That's what it's called. The Interrupted Journey, and it printed a lot of the recall under hypnosis, the transcripts of the recall under hypnosis. So let me see. I should be capturing. I'm worried that this is capturing it. I hope it's capturing it. If not, I won't have anything I'll have to do this again, but it should be capturing it. Okay, So because the video has a red, but the timer at the top says 00:00:00, which means it's not elapsing, but hopefully it's taking it from the camera. All right. So you had a really serious, I would say, adult take on the UFO subject, namely alien abduction cases. And you'd see this a little bit later on, a couple decades later on. All right, 2 years after the 1975, you got Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and produced by Steven Spielberg, and he had consultation about the the UFO phenomenon, and it was, I think, it was a much more serious work than a serious take on the phenomenon than the earlier 50s and 60s movies. I want to say it was very mainstream. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. As a matter of fact, the term Close Encounters of the Third Kind refers to one of three, now more than three, types of encounters, categories of encounters. Close Encounter of the First Kind is a sighting of some kind of craft or weird sighting in the sky. Close Encounter of the Second Kind is some kind of physical evidence, burnt marks, or some kind of burnt marks on the ground usually. And then Close Encounter of the Third Kind is actual contact with aliens, a sighting of an alien being. And then since then, now that was developed by J. Allen Hynek, who had been in the military. He was he was actually a meteorologist, I believe. Excuse me, meteorologist, and he was a public spokesperson for the military, essentially. And that was at the time when they were studying reports to see if. Now I want to word this carefully. As I recall, it was to see if there was any threat posed to Earth or to the United States, to national any threat posed to the United States. So it's not necessarily, I'd have to read through it again, but catch myself up, but it's not necessarily saying that they don't exist. It's saying that it's asking whether, of course, this is by the military, so they're asking, does this pose a threat to national security or whatever? And it started off Project Sign, lasted like a year or something, maybe a few months, and then that was switched over to Project Grudge because of internal things, internal Project Grudge. The name Grudge says it all, as if somebody had a grudge against how Project Sign had been handled. And then after that, Project Blue Book, and Project Blue Book was the one that lasted the longest. And so J. Allen Hynek was the spokesperson for that, and he went in as a skeptic, so to speak, and the evidence just became overwhelming that he should shift, and he wanted to actually study this seriously, and he became more like a proponent, saying there is a reality behind this phenomenon, there is something going on here. So he developed these three categories: first, second, and third kind of encounter, close encounter. So that was 1977. 1978 is The Cat from Outer Space, another Disney movie. It seems like Disney seems to jibe. UFOs and flying saucers seem to jibe well with Disney, doesn't it? Because of the magical, the supernatural. You have basically a cat piloting a flying saucer. I'm pretty sure it was a flying saucer. Sandy Duncan was in that. And then the following year, I put this in Alien. The movie Alien came out in 1979. Oh, the cat was friendly, could talk, could speak through a collar. And Ken Barry was his companion, a human companion that he met, and so forth. So it was a friendly take on aliens. And then, of course, I think you have the military coming in. I believe you have the military, some kind of human adversary. Then Alien, the adversary is definitely the aliens in 1979. So it's flipping back and forth. You can see more like two takes, not just alien invasion like we had in the 50s and 60s. Then E.T. colon the extraterrestrial, which is what E.T. stands for anyway, but they felt the need, somebody somewhere felt the need to put in the extraterrestrial after it, just to show you what E.T. stood for. That came out, I believe, in 1982. And that was, of course, a more friendly take on aliens. 1988, and of course I skipped over a bunch of them. 1988, They Live, which was a callback, no, I don't want to say an homage, but more reminiscent of the aliens are invading us through, it's kind of like a conspiracy movie. It is a conspiracy movie, really. Aliens are invading us secretly, they're wandering amongst us. And there's something else I wanted to touch on. It's interesting, I'm glad I remembered this. I'll get to that soon. I'll try to remember. It has something. It has to do with Robert. No, not Robert Icke. Oh, I'm blanking on his. Was it Robert Icke? The one who claimed that humans are really lizard people in disguise. Icke. I think his first name is Robert. It's funny, when the camera comes on, the mind goes off, and the memory goes off. Anyway, all right, so They Live comes out in 1988. Communion, 1989, and I think of that as being reminiscent of the UFO incident, 1975. Remember, that's the movie, that's the, what may be the first televised movie depicting or based on an alien encounter. So you've got Communion in 1989. That was, from what I recall, a mainstream movie. It told the story of Whitley Strieber, played by Christopher Walken. Very, very memorable. If you know Christopher Walken, you know what I mean by very memorable acting. And it kind of, I would say it took the alien abduction phenomenon seriously. It exposed, it illustrated, it portrayed what consequences there are of somebody who thinks he's abducted by aliens. And of course it's based on the first of several books. At that point there were only two books. There was Communion, which was his first book, and his second book being Transformation. And with him, with the actual author, now the movie was interesting. The author was a horror novelist, fictional horror novelist, and I have qualms. I think there's a possibility. Just throwing it out there, there's a possibility that he was writing this fictionally, but claiming it was a true story. I'll just put it out there. Now, it's interesting. That was 1989. It's interesting that a few years later, we have two things. We have something in the movie theater, and this is 1993. We have something in the movie theater. We have something on our TV sets. The X-Files, of course, premieres in September 1993. It goes for several years, and there's no doubt it definitely fits this list. It has to be on this list because it deals with ufology, aspects of the UFO phenomenon, and became very, very popular and mainstreamed a lot of aspects that I was already familiar with, having read since childhood in the mid-1980s about UFOs, books about, like, adult books when I was a child. I have some of them back there. But anyway, so that mainstreamed concepts like Roswell, the basic flying saucer, the typical gray alien, that's fascinating in and of itself. Now, when the book Communion came out in 1987, I believe, As I remember, 87, 88, 89 was the movie. Yeah, in 1987, yes, because there were two books in the same year. On the cover of Whitley Strieber's book Communion, there was a there was a depiction of the alien type that he typically encountered. Now that's different from the typical alien gray. Wasn't even gray, it was actually peach colored. Very long, narrow face, large almond shaped black eyes, and so forth. But people had said since then that when they saw that, it sparked a memory that perhaps they too had been abducted. Now, concurrent with that was another book called by Bud Hopkins called Intruders. Now that was the second book by Bud Hopkins. his earlier book called Missing Time was the first one, certainly one of the first in ufology to be a whole book covering this phenomenon of missing time, and that would be then linked with alien abductions, memories of being under hypnosis, recalling being abducted. So that too had a more a depiction of an alien that more resembles what we think of as gray alien. So you got the two books concurrently released, concurrently published, and that apparently got a lot of people having flashbacks to having these memories. Maybe they were abducted as well. Okay, so then we get to, of course, X-Files, and we get to, in the movie theater, we get to Fire in the Sky, which was another theatrical, I have qualms about this movie. So does Travis Walton, I'm sure. Depictions of Travis Walton's abduction case. Now, I want to go back to the UFO incident, and this is something that when I produce one of my podcasts, will be about, will be a documentary series. First season, 26 episodes, will be about UFO cases. And I want to explore it in a different way. I'll stick to this topic, but briefly, I want my UFO podcast to be different from typically just showing tantalizing UFO cases. I want to explain a case, then at the end or gradually over the course of the episode, it's going to be like 42 minutes. Each episode will be 42 minutes long. Introduce things that provide an alternative explanation rather than alien encounter. So that's going to be fun. So back to the UFO incident. Now, that aired around September, and I've got a very fascinating episode in store about the Betty and Barney Hill case, because I don't think they were abducted by aliens. I'm questioning whether anybody has been truly abducted by aliens, but it's fascinating to figure out what actually happened. I think there was a mountain. I think there was a beacon on a mountain. And it was a combination of that and mistaken things that were misconstrued, and then under hypnosis you can be very suggestible. And I think around that time there were movies shown on TV, movies and TV episodes of so forth, and I think that worked its way into the hypnosis sessions, primarily probably Betty's hypnosis sessions. I think that came out. So it's interesting. The UFO incident comes out, doesn't take a side either way, which is interesting. It's not sensationalistic. It basically depicts this mysterious occurrence and the aftermath, and it leaves it open-ended. Now, I think that aired around like October something, 1975. Travis Walton went missing in real life, went missing in November 5th, 1975, and then turns up several days later and then claims to have had this alien abduction. So what I suspect happened is that for reasons I'll get into in the documentary series, he had this idea. He was perhaps inspired by the UFO incident, which had just aired, and then given him some information to draw upon for creating his own abduction tale. Now, let's get back to 1993. We had X-Files on TV, Fire in the Sky. Now, earlier on television, well, of course, I read the Travis Walton case, and the first time I had heard about the Travis Walton case was a documentary I should mention this, in 1980, 1979, I think it was like 1979, somewhere about there, which was called UFOs Are Real. And it depicted it narrated with paintings and so forth, and interspersed with Travis's own interview footage. It told what he claims he experienced, and I also read in books and so forth about the experience. It was uniform. It didn't change that much, at least from my point of view, from the 1980s. It did mention that it didn't deviate that much. Fire in the Sky, however, definitely deviated. Without learning, without delving into the relationships amongst his friends, Travis Walton's co-workers, I didn't do much of that. I guess it depicted in a relatively realistic way. It didn't take sides either way, although I think it heavily depicted it as something. It heavily leaned or implied. That's right. That's a good word. Implied that the alien abduction case was fabricated. However, the alien abduction itself, as depicted in the movie, has no bearing. It's like that, it bears no resemblance whatsoever to what he reported. So he, being miffed at that, decided to create his own documentary. And I haven't watched it, but I've seen it available on YouTube. Maybe you have to pay for it or not, but I've seen it depicted. I've seen it. It's advertised on YouTube. And then, of course, you get Roswell the year after that. Now, David, that's the name, David Icke. Okay, good. I'll just go through the rest of these. 1993 and then 94, you get a movie, Roswell, which is an HBO dramatization of the crash at Roswell, and Independence. By this point, everybody, it's much more mainstream. Independence Day in 1996, Men in Black, which is part of the UFO phenomenon, but actually that movie itself was based on comic books, which I imagine were based on the Men in Black phenomenon, sub-phenomenon within ufology. Now, going to David Icke, I should also mention the movie V. Now, David Icke has become famous for writing books about a conspiracy that there are lizard people who have taken human form, and they are a lot of our political leaders, like I believe the Queen of England and royalty, and various world leaders are really lizards, and sometimes you can see them their eyes switch from human to lizard back again, so forth, for a split second. So it's interesting that I don't know the time frame that was coming out in. I think it was the 1990s. I'm pretty sure it was the 1990s, maybe 1980s, but 1983. I believe 82, 83, I think it was 83, you had a famous TV movie, I think shown over 2 parts, called V. And it depicted the huge, they called it a mothership. It was certainly, the size of it was a mothership size. There were several of them orbiting the Earth, and flying saucer, and it had little ships. It was an interesting alien take or science fiction take on, how do I be careful about this on YouTube? What happened in 1940s Germany. Just very interesting take on it. So they turned out to be surprise, surprise, spoiler alert, about 50 years later, something like that, 40 years later, they turn out to be lizards underneath these human masks, and they eat mice and so forth. So somebody pointed out that it's interesting that some years later, you get these mainstream, somewhat mainstream conspiracy theories or rumors or developments in UFO lore inspired or reminiscent of what was earlier in television, whether in the theaters or on TV. Now, I've gone over time in terms of it being neatly half an hour for one topic, half an hour for another topic. I wanted to switch topics now to some toys, some fun toys that we nearly got. Now, this is a copy and paste. You can see right here, V, right there. These are toys that we nearly got. Thundar the Barbarian. There's something interesting about Thundar. It had it originally had this concept of the sword being split into two, and it was a cartoon. I think Saturday morning cartoon. However, that same idea of the sword being split was also subsequently in Masters of the Universe, right here, Masters of the Universe. But they couldn't use that concept of the sword in the Filmation cartoon. They couldn't use that idea of the split sword. I guess because Thundar the Barbarian had already used it. I don't know. I'm taking a guess. But it's interesting. Those of you who have seen only the Filmation version of Masters of the Universe, you're in for a wild treat. Read the mini comics that came with the Masters of the Universe toys, and they did have full-size comic books as well. Yes, we almost got V. I remember we almost got those action figures. Those of you who have seen the actual V movie, and then there was the following year, there was a V the Final Battle TV movie, and then after that there was a short-lived V the series. And they had these little figures. When I saw them, of course I was collecting action figures at the time. When I saw them, I thought it was kind of like a promotion for the toys, or I was expecting the toys to come out. That'd be neat, wouldn't it, to have the shuttle where you have, like they in the movie, they depict a child playing with these little action figures of the real characters, which is kind of eerie, but it's deliciously eerie. It's like demonstrating how the aliens can brainwash people's minds and kids' minds. Go for the kids, enable them to like these new aliens and be enamored by these new aliens, and that helps the alien invasion, right? So it had these little action figures, and I was all for having these little action figures that apparently Mego was set to, or in the works, was planning on releasing. Alas, we only got a large doll of an alien visitor with a human head. You could take the head off and reveal the snake inside, but you know, Star Wars, the Kenner Star Wars action figures really set the ground stage, if that's the right phrase, set the stage for action figures based on IP, intellectual property, and they tried a bit with Indiana Jones, the Adventures of Indiana Jones, but that same company. And there's some other companies that had similar action figures, but there's some TV shows and movies that could have really benefited a lot, like Star Trek. Star Trek could have done the same thing as Star Wars. There's enough fan following there for Star Trek. You have plenty of just the Enterprise crew alone, Kirk, Spock, McCoy. Then you've got the aliens, you've got the Enterprise, you've got shuttlecraft. later on, of course, Galoob would catch up and release oodles upon oodles of action figures. But it's a now I think I don't want to divert course, but they did come up with small action figures in the Star Wars scale when the motion picture came out, but for whatever reason it fell short. They didn't continue with that. So it's interesting. Mego was apparently a big company at the time. Alien, I think wasn't, those of you who may know, was Mego one of the first ones that Lucasfilm reached out to produce? I think it was to produce the Star Wars figures, and then I think some knucklehead somewhere said no, and then Kenner got the contract, and they got the rights to beat out everybody else. And people have speculated that that's why they couldn't get, Mego couldn't, wait a minute, that's Mattel. No, sorry, Mattel. Mattel couldn't get licensing to sell toys based on some product or some IP already existing, so they created their own Masters of the Universe. I know Mego did have some licensing. I think it was either Star Trek or Star Wars. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was Star Trek that they almost got the licensing for. But anyway, it would have been interesting. Alien, I could sort of see Alien. Logan's Run was a very famous science fiction movie. Mid-1980s G.I. Joe, Star Wars crossovers, potential. Okay, I'm going to skip that. That's not the topic right now. Of course, why they were canceled, company bankruptcies, market shifts, the toy landscape changing rapidly, and licensing issues which come up. You see notable canceled unreleased toy lines. Krull, that would have been interesting. The Last Starfighter. I had seen a video on YouTube on the Retro Blasting YouTube channel. They show some early figures. I believe the Dark Crystal also had toys in the works. But the Last Starfighter, they had at least figures. I think they were beyond the prototype stage. I think they were very close to actual production. And if I remember correctly, each package would have an alien it was an enemy and an alliance figure together, which would be great because the two could interact. You get more than one figure. Krull, I've seen the movie. It didn't interest me as much as a movie. I'll tell you what they did produce. And my source again is Retro Blasting. Instead of these that we nearly got, we got the Love Boat action figures. So, and they also came out with the boat. It's a small, sectioned off, cut off of the boat itself. I don't know how many people were really interested in the Love Boat, but apparently somebody was really hyper and really effective at getting action figure promotion. So what do you know about any other franchises, any other TV shows or movies that you would have liked to have seen in action figure form or in toy form? Thinking through, what would I have liked to have seen? I certainly would have loved to have seen V in action figure form. I know that E.T., they had a little wind-up E.T. There was a lot of promotion for E.T. I remember the wind-up dolls for E.T. Let me see what else. I know the $6 Million Man. Was that produced by Kenner or Mattel? that was one of the the mainstream popular IP action figures, and I would say that and Planet of the Apes. It may have been Kenner. It may have been Kenner because it wasn't such a big difference from the smaller Star Wars action figures. Somebody may correct me at the bottom. Feel free to correct me. Um, so I guess we're a little short on time. It's about 8 more minutes. So I will, I guess, call this short right now. Feel free to comment below. Give me ideas for what you'd like to see in a live stream or in a one of the other 3 podcasts. I'm also shifting from my Samantha. I'm shifting my Samantha podcast from just me appearing in costume, female impersonation, to using it to showcase things that I'm producing on my way to creating her as a persona, as a performer. So I worked on my electronic press kit a bit more. I'm working on getting photography made, and I've talked about that in my prior podcast. So that, or what you'd like to see in terms of my UFO documentary, documentary series. The first season I plan to be 26 episodes, 42 minutes per episode. It's going to have here, I might as well, hey, this is live stream. I use this for my improvements on how things are going. See, there's me. I'm going to insert my count. This is my countdown. It's clearly not a countdown, but I was using this to experiment with. So please, if you like this, please remember to subscribe, tell your friends, tell everybody you know. Tell me how my face should be shaven better. But give me ideas for what you'd like to see. So here. So I'll end it right here, and I wish you all a good rest of your week.